Okay, we have a bit of a Yom Tov here tonight as we welcome back Avigdor Fried from Eretz Yisrael. Not that we're happy that he's not in Eretz Yisrael, but we're very happy that he's here. It's like I tell Eddie, I'm very happy when Eddie goes home to his family, but I could still be also very happy that he's here with us. So it's not a stira. We are dedicated by the Fogel family, L'Nishmas Yaakov Zeb ben Yodaya, Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam bas Gad, Yosef ben Tzim ben Yaakov Zev, for Shalema for Moshe Aryeh ben Binyamin, and for a great Shidduch for Chayet Tzivya bas Shoshana Gittel. We're dedicated by Baruch Ion, L'Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther bas Yona, Avram ben Shmuel HaKoyen, L'Refuah Shalema for Liba bas Anya. By A.B. Spry, we're dedicated for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We're dedicated by Mark Frankel in loving memory of his father, Yisrael Tzvi ben Chaim Yeshua Falik. And we're dedicated to Shalema for Shoshana bas Adina Chana. We learned for Chavar Adaf, Aaron ben Sarah, and continued learning for Chavar Adaf, Menachem Yaakov ben Nachman Yaakov ben Sarah. We are holding
Rabbi, our first Shlomo Mordechai Tzvi ben Rus Chana.
Mordechai Tzvi ben Rus Chana. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niyeh b'dvaro.
Amen.
Okay. So, I'm going to tell it to you now. I don't want it to be a shock. Next Thursday night, I have a family chasana. As it is, it's very difficult to, usually I go to chasanas, I take my computer with me, and I do it by the chasana, but it's going to be very difficult next week, because I'm not sure exactly what time the chuppah is going to be. So tonight, if you look at Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, you'll see that it's 3 lines. So we're going to learn tonight 2 blot, so that also this way Yaakov Warman, who has a bar mitzvah next Thursday night, is not going to have to miss the shir, because he doesn't want to miss a shir until Mashiach comes. So it worked out. After that, we plan to have for the Shabbos table. So, and I don't think it's going to be longer than a regular night if I don't stop prattling and I start learning over here. So 3 lines from the top of Samach Amud Aleph, Rabbi Yehuda, Ki Gomer Gezei Rishava, when Rabbi Yehuda uses the Gezei Rishava of Ravua, that's Baruch Bahu de Gomer. That's to tell us that when it says 5 amas, it means 5 amas in all 4 quadrants, making it 10 by 10. Says the Gemara, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that that which is said about the altar that was 3 amas high and the curtains were 5 amas high, then it would come out that a person standing on the Mizbeach, an average person is 3 amas, or 2.5 amas, but a person standing on the Mizbeach, if the curtains were only 5 and the Mizbeach was 3, so then he would be seen over the curtains. Rabbi Yehuda says, Gemara, yeah, that's okay. You'll see his head, but you won't see the Avodah. Even though you might see his head, but Avodah to be Mischaze, and the main thing is there should be privacy to the Avodah. Now, remember, we said that Rabbi Yeshua held that the 142,000 korbanos that Shlomo offered, he would have to offer on the floor. So therefore, he sanctified the floor. So Bishloim Rabbi Yehuda, Hainu Dichsiv Kidash, that he sanctified the floor. El Rabbi Yaisi, but according to Rabbi Yaisi, which remember we calculated that according to Rabbi Yaisi, the Mizbeach of Moshe Rabbeinu had an area of 6 by 6, 36 square amas, and even though the Shlomo's was 20 by 20, an area of 400 amas, that would just be 11 times as much. Excuse me, the other way around. But according to Rabbi Yaisi, who said that the Mizbeach of Moshe was only 1 by 1, and therefore if you could offer 1,000 on that, then in Shlomo HaMelech's, which was 20 by 20, which is 400,000, you could offer a 400,000 karbanos. So then why would they need to sanctify the floor? El Rabbi Yaisi my Kidesh, what does it mean? They sanctified the floor. Lahamid ba Mizbeach, it means that they sanctified the floor in order to put the bigger Mizbeach on the floor of the Azara. Says the Gemara, Bishloim el Rabbi Yaisi, it's good according to Rabbi Yaisi, Hainu d'chsiv cotton. That's why it says, since he was actually talking about the Mizbeach of Moshe Rabbeinu, that's why it says Hainu d'chsiv cotton mehakel. That was the Mizbeach nechoshes, because Moshe Rabbeinu was made out of copper, was cotton mehakel, was small to hold the karbanos. El Rabbi Yehuda, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the Mizbeach of Moshe was the Mizbeach of Shlomo, made out of rock, was too small. Then what does it mean that the Mizbeach of Nechoshes was too small to be able to hold it? El Rabbi Yehuda, my cotton, even the Mizbeach of Shlomo, which was made out of rock, was too small. Hachi Kamar, Mizbeach Avonim she'asa shloima takas Mizbeach Nechoshes. The Mizbeach of Adama, of Avonim, of stone, that Shlomo Melech made to replace Moshe Rabbeinu's copper Mizbeach was too small to contain the 142,000 karbanos. Now, in the details, we didn't even really break down these details, but in the details yesterday, it comes out that in the Gezerah Shava, Rabbi Yehuda compares the Mizbeach HaChitzon of Moshe Rabbeinu to the Mizbeach HaChitzon of Yecheskel, mentioned in Yecheskel's vision. While Rabbi Yaisi makes the Gezerah Shava between the Mizbeach HaChitzon of Moshe and the Mizbeach HaZov of Moshe Rabbeinu. So the question is, why did they make, what were they arguing about in how to compare it? So b'may kamilgi, so the Gemara says, b'may pligi, mar savar donin chutz mechutz, we learn out the Mizbeach outside of Moshe from the Mizbeach outside of Yecheskel, while we don't learn out the Mizbeach ve'ein donin chutz mebifnim, the Mizbeach of outside of Moshe from the Mizbeach Hazav, the Mizbeach of inside of Moshe. Omar savar donin kli mikli. Rabbi Yaisi holds the Mizbeach of Moshe outside and the Mizbeach of Moshe inside were both considered vessels. They ain't done in Kli Mebinyan, while the Mizbeach outside of Yecheskel was considered a structure, and we don't learn out a Kli from a structure. Okay, so that's just some house cleaning on what was the reason for the machlokes. But now, if you remember, we said that Rabbi Yehuda admits that when it comes to, although Rabbi Yehuda said that they could burn, at the time they were makdish the floor, when by the inauguration of Shlomo HaMelech they smoked up the sacrifices, they were makdish the floor of the Azara and they smoked up the sacrifices on the floor. But we said that Rabbi Yehuda agrees that blood could only be put on the Mizbeach. So it says, Gemara, Amar Rava, Moide Reb Yehuda B'Damin. The Tanya, now this we all know, we had this many times, about on Pesach, when they had the assembly line with thousands of carbon Pesachs, and they had the assembly line bringing the blood to the altar, because of spillage, if you remember, they stopped up the Azara, they blocked it that the blood shouldn't escape, and they scooped up 1 keli of blood from the floor and applied it to the Mizbeach. Of course, if it would have spilled from the neck of the animal, it wouldn't be good. But if it spilled from a clay shares, so then they could scoop it up and make 1 application on the Mizbeach. So Gemara wants to prove that Yesida Rabbi Yehuda holds that you can't put it on the floor. Because if you could put it on the floor, why did they have to scoop it up? So let's see that inside. The Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Kais Echad, 1 keli, they filled up from the blood that was mixed on the floor, because if one of the blood spilled before it reached the Mizbeach, a little bit of it would go on the Mizbeach, and this would render it okay. But the Isal Kedaita Sab Rabbi Yehuda Kula Azara Mikdasha, that the whole floor of the Azara was sanctified, then the mitzvah was performed when it was on the floor. So you'll say no. It's only good if you spill it deliberately on the floor, but not if it just spilled accidentally on the floor. You need it to be actually applied to the floor. But, says the Gemara, but it's still a riot. Why did they have to put it on the Mizbeach? They could have just thrown it on the floor right there. Says Gemara, it's still not a proof. Because maybe l'chatchila it should go on the Mizbeach. Here you had an opportunity to go on the Mizbeach. You wouldn't pour it on the floor. The floor is only when you don't have room. Okay, now we move on to a new subject. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Mizbeach shenifkam. If the Mizbeach got chipped, ein oichlin beginoi sharei mincha. If, let's say, Gedalia brought a mincha, and they offered the kmitza, and then the Mizbeach got chipped, they're not allowed to eat the shirayim of that mincha now that there is not a viable Mizbeach intact. Shenema v'ichlua matzas eitzel ha-Mizbeach. And they should eat the unleavened part of the mincha near the Mizbeach. Now, you don't have to eat it near the Mizbeach. The din is that it doesn't have to be eaten. It could even be eaten behind the Kodesh Kodashim. Remember, we learned. It says, when it says that it should be eaten near the Mizbeach, it means the Mizbeach has to be whole. It cannot be deficient. So the Gemara says, okay, that's true by the remnants of the Mincha. What about if, let's say, Gedalia offered a shlomim, and then the Mizbeach got chipped, could they eat the shlomim? Ashkechan sharei mincha, not shlomim. Shlomim is kachim kalim. What about the basar of a chatas, or the basar of an asham? Ashkechan sharei mincha, kachim minalim. What about kachim? Says the Gemara Talmud Leimer, it says by mincha kodesh kodashim, and therefore we make a juxtaposition to any kodesh kodashim, not just the remnants of the mincha, but also to the remnants of a ashim, to the remnants of a chatas. But what about the remnants of a shlamim? Kachim kalim minayin. Kachim kalim, can you eat, if the Mizbeach was chipped, can you eat the remnants of kachim kalim? Amar Abaya Asya Midrasha de Rabbi Yaisi. It comes from a drasha of Rabbi Yaisi. Asya Midrasha de Rabbi Yaisi. The Tanya. Rabbi Yossi Aimer Gimel Dvarim Mishum Gimel Zekenim. He said three things in the name of three great elders, and this is one of them. V'zeh echad mehem. And this was in the name of the great elder Rabbi Yishmael. Now this is an interesting shayla. If the Beis Hamikdash is not intact, Rachmana litzlan, can you bring up Ma'aser Sheni and eat it in Yerushalayim? Now by Ma'aser Sheni it says you're supposed to eat it and Lifnei Hashem. So can you eat it even though there's no Beis Hamikdash? Now, we don't eat it, but what we could do is we could be paid it for even a small amount, and then we could eat it. But you can't eat Ma'aser Sheni. But the Gemara says, maybe you can. Rabbi Shmuel Aimer Yachal Yala Oda Ma'aser Sheni LiYerushalayim V'yechlenu B'zman Hazeh, and eat it nowadays. So the Gemara says, well, Dinhu B'char Toyin Havayas Makam. B'char could only be eaten in Yerushalayim. You have to offer it as a sacrifice. U'maiser Toyin Havayas Makam. Ma b'char einay ela b'fnei habayis. Now this means that even if you had a b'char where you shechted it and did the zrikas hadam, and then the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, you're not allowed to eat the basar. So ma b'char einay ela b'fnei habayis, af maiser einay ela b'fnei habayis. So it says, well, maybe it's not a good comparison because b'char needs zrika and the smoking of the sacrificial portions on the Mizbeach. So the Gemara says, Bikurim yochichu. Bikurim will disprove you. The first fruits, they're not, there's no blood, and there's no sacrificial portions, but you could only eat it l'fnei Hashem. Says the Gemara again, Bikurim, it's a mitzvah of hanocha before the Mizbeach. Says the Gemara, Mala Bikurim shekain tun in hanocha, v'nichu, you have to put it before the Mizbeach. Talmud Leimer, we have a hekesh. It says in the pasuk, V'aveisem shama, and you should bring there olo seichem v'zivcheichem v'esmasroi seichem. Oh, so it juxtaposes ma'aser to the oila, and it also says in the pasuk, V'estrumas yedchem v'nidreichem v'nidvoiseichem u'b'chayres b'karchem. Says the Gemara, Makish ma'aser l'b'char, ma b'char ein ela b'fnei habayis. Af ma'aser ein ela b'fnei habayis. It can only be when the Beis Hamikdash is there. Says Gemara, I don't understand. Why do we need a pasuk? Why couldn't you learn it out from Bikurim and B'char? You'll say Mala B'char that it needs Aktaris, it needs Zrika and Emurim, Bikurim Teichiach. Mala Bikurim that it needs to be put before the Mizbeach, B'char Teichiach. We should say Tzad HaShavah Shebehem, that they both have to be brought up and they can't be eaten except the Fnei Hashem. The same thing is true by Ma'aser. Says no, because there's a common denominator that you could ask a pircha, and that is that both Bikurim and Bechor have a tzad mizbeach. The Bechor is blood and the sacrificial portions, and Bikurim you have to put it in front of the mizbeach. Mishum deikol mifrach ma'ala tzad hashavah shebem sheyesh tzad mizbeach. But now the Gemara says, I don't understand the whole question. My kasavar. If we say that the Kedusha of Yerushalayim and the Makom HaMikdash was sanctified for its time and sanctified even for the future, it still remains, then afilu b'char nami. If you slaughtered it and you sprinkled its blood, and then the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, why can't you eat the bechar? The area is sanctified. The ikasavar loy kitcha lasid lavai, that it's not kitcha. So you say you don't know about Meiser, say the same thing, that you don't know about Bechar. Afilu Bechar nami tiboy. Says the Gemara, Amar Avinu la'olam kesava loy kitcha. That it's not sanctified anymore. V'acha b'mayas chinam, b'bechar shenizrak damai koydem churban abayis. The Bechar taka, the blood was sprinkled before the Beis Mikdash was destroyed. V'char v'abayis, v'adayim b'sarai kain. But it says in the pasuk, es habaser ve'es hadam, juxtaposing the meat to the blood. The iskish b'sarai l'damai. Ma damai, you must have the mizbeach. Af b'sarai mimizbeach. And then we learn out Meiser from Bechar. V'asi Meiser v'yolef mi Bechar. Uh-oh, that's a problem. That's something, we're learning it out from the Basar of Bechar, which we learned out a Hekesh from Dam, and then we're learning out another Hekesh to Meiser. But we know the Chidavar Alamed Behekesh, Chayzim Alamed Behekesh. Something that we learned from a Hekesh, could we convey with a second Hekesh? Says, what was the second Hekesh? The second Hekesh was to Meiser. Meiser is not Hektish. These rules of you can't learn from a double Hekesh is only by Kachim. Meiser is Meiser Dogan. That's not Kachim. Meiser Dogan Chulenu. Says that's Hanich Lamani Yom Abasa Lamed Azlina. That if what we're trying to learn out is key, so then it's not a problem because what we're learning out is not Kachim. Elamani Yom Abasa Malamed Azlina, that we're going after what we're teaching, Ma'ikalamema, says Gemara, well, the first hektish of Dam and Basar is considered one. Dam u Basar Choda Milsi, that's not considered a hekesh, that's one unit, and it's not considered a first hekesh. Okay, now I think it would be nice that I would be a mensch, and before I even finish the first blot, I should welcome in A.B. Spry, Mel Zachter, Eddie Chazan, Mo Kushner, Barry Cement, Shimon Klein, Dr. Guy, Menachem Yemansky, Ruven Palak, Yaakov Warman, Saba, Victor Fried, Yay, Baruch Ian, Yisrael Fisher, Ben Zion Cohn, Yitzi Fuchs, Irving Fishbaum, Rebellia Yaffe, Nachman Chaplin. Nachman, you doing better today?
A little bit better, Baruch.
It should be better and better. Nachman Yaakov Ben Sarah, Rabbi Kranz, Naftali Jablin, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, A. Barbach, Avram Rezepkowitz, Ilya Shutman, Daniel Rosenberg, Yitzi Muller, Shelley Zeitlin, and David Helfgott. Again, a wonderful happy anniversary to both David Helfgott and Yaakov Warman and their significant partners. Here in the shul, we have Berish Gesserman and Gedalia Engel, Chaim Kramer, Michal Avram, Danny Vogel, Ruvain Shanit, Reb Halpert. It's interesting that we're missing two regulars where we would have a minyan, but Herschel is already not here for 2 days. We're going to have to get out the truant police, and Yehuda Solomon is not here tonight. Okay, now. Says the Gemara, Kisolik Ravin, when Ravin went up to Eretz Yisrael, when it says Nochis, it means to go down to Bavel. When it says Kisolik, it means to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Kisolik Ravin, Amr l'shmaitze l'kamei d'Reb Yirmiyah. He said over this sugya that we just learned before Reb Yirmiyah, Amar Bavloi Tipshoi, foolish Babylonians, Emtel the Yosvei Ba'arach HaShoicha, because they live in a dark land, Imrei Shmaitza de Mechashcha. In other words, we just wanted to extrapolate that Kochim Kalim also could not be eaten. if the Mizbeach is not intact. However, he says, Lo Shmir Lahu Adesanya, did you not learn a brisa that has an internal contradiction? It first says, Bishas Siluk Masois. Now, people that have been around a long time, like Avigdor, remember those days where in the Midbar they dismantled the Masois. Remember, Avigdor, when they went to travel, they dismantled the Mishkan. So b'shas siluk masois, when they dismantled the Mishkan, any kachim that were left, nifsalim, becomes disqualified. Because that's like the Mizbeach being chipped. It's dismantled. Now, even though they dismantled it, still the area was holy. The Mitzvah had to go completely outside of the camp, and the Zavim had to go outside of the Machna Leviyah. V'tanya idach, b'shnei mekaymis kachim nechalim. In two places, kachim could be eaten. My love, in other words, both where the Mishkan was around, and also when they were traveling. So here it says that the kachim is not disqualified, and they could eat it even when they were traveling. My love, kachim, once they dismantled it, it becomes fossil. Kachim kalim, which could be eaten all over Yerushalayim, so there, even if they dismantled it, it could be eaten. So therefore, the Gemara says, you see over here, that kachim kalim can be eaten, even if the Mizbeach is chipped, even if the Mizbeach is dismantled. So the Gemara now says, but we're going to pause a minute to change the channel here.